Hello and welcome to the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion here at Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California. Welcome to Advent Preaching, and this is a Queering the Word workshop here at CLGS. And our workshop presenters and leaders today are Reverend Lauren Bennett and Reverend Jakob Shaw. Welcome, everybody. My name is Bernie Schlager. I use he, they pronouns, and I serve as Executive Director here at CLGS. We will be recording today's workshop for future posting and use. We will not post the chat feature. So let me begin with a bit of an introduction to this program and say something about our workshop leaders. So a new liturgical year starts with Advent, a time of watching, waiting, and preparing our hearts for justice and love. As we enter year A of the lectionary, this CLGS and MCC Queering the Word preaching workshop will prepare us for queering Advent a bit and setting the foundation for the coming liturgical year. The center is offering one continuing education unit for attendance and participation in this program. So in a bit, I'll post in the chat an email address that you can use to email us and request your CEU certificate. This is part of a 4-workshop series. The first is today on Advent preaching, and then there will be a second on Lenten preaching, and that will feature Reverend Dr. Tijuana Gray, as well as Reverend Jakob Shaw. That will be in January. I will also post a link to this in the chat in a bit. And then at the end of the month of January, we will have a workshop on baptisms, weddings, and funerals with our same presenters as today. And then we'll have a bonanza extravaganza for the 4th LGBTQ plus Holy Days holidays with Reverend Lauren Bennett, Reverend Dr. Tijuana Gray, and Reverend Jakob Shaw. Again, I'll post all of that in the chat. But let me say something about our workshop leaders today by way of intro. Reverend Lauren Bennett is pastor at MCC Greater St. Louis. In addition, Lauren coordinates conferences and events for the MCC denomination. As a graduate of Wesley Theological Seminary, she lived in Washington, D.C. for 4 years before moving to the Midwest. Coming from a community organizing background, Lauren is particularly passionate about working with the crucified of our time for liberation from systems of oppression. Welcome, Lauren. And secondly, Reverend Jakob Shaw is senior pastor of Metropolitan Community Church of Tampa. Jakob received his MDiv and certificate in sexuality and religion from Pacific School of Religion, as well as an MA in ethics and social theory from Graduate Theological Union. He holds a graduate diploma in Christian theology and spiritual direction from Cardiff University in Wales, and also holds a BA in religious studies with an emphasis on Christianity and Islam from the University of Southern Florida. Jakob has led trainings on human rights and participated in transgender advocacy throughout the US, Canada, the United Kingdom, Central and Eastern Europe. So without any further words from me, I will turn the platform over to Lauren and Jakob. And again, thank you for being here. And I will post those promised items in the chat.
Hello, hello. Who's ready for Advent? Well, you will be by the end of this webinar, hopefully. It's a joy to be with you today. We have a PowerPoint that we'll share in just a moment, and there's a feature on Zoom that if you don't want to look at the PowerPoint and want to look at the people instead, there'll be a tab that comes up that you can kind of go back and forth if you want to do that, if you're that so inclined. This is going to be great. Reverend Jakob and I will go through a few slides. We just want to kind of orient you into some of our thinking about what it means to queer the word and to be together in community, and then we'll have a discussion for part of our time too. So get ready to share your thoughts, opinions, and hopes for Advent this season. So I'll share my screen. Oh, whoops. There we go. Okay, here we are, Queer Advent. So we would love to know who you are. This part is for the chat. So if you're watching this later, you'll just have to know that some great people are in the room today that you'll probably see toward the end. But if you could type in your name, your pronouns, your location, and what are you bringing into Advent? And we're just going to do that in the chat. So what are you bringing into Advent? And as you type some of those things in, maybe we'll start a little bit with some of the things that we're bringing into Advent. So in this time of great upheaval in our world, or times when we want to be able to change things and make way for new things, we want to start off with an understanding of what we are doing by queering the word and how we understand that. So as you're typing in what you're bringing into Advent and who you are, we want to introduce you to a little bit about how we define queer. Oops. I'm not killing it with the slides. They're pretty, but
So if you've been in one of our workshops before, we always in these queering the word workshops start with kind of getting a definition of queer. And Lauren came across this incredible, beautiful definition that we've decided to add into the discussion. This is not the only definition of queer, but looking at queer as a verb, to queer is to break down, to destroy the structures that would limit or bar or imprison us, and to rethink or even replace them. And that's by, I'm not quite sure how to, is it Gina maybe? Hadlick.
throughout time, we've often thought about queering as a form of liberation theology, so looking at the world from below. And we thought that this was such a good distillation of the ways that we've tried to define queer. And for many of us in LGBT communities, the word queer has been used to oppress, but we want to reclaim that language and be a part of the tradition of reclaiming language that LGBT people are so good at doing in so many ways, to reclaim tradition, language, religion. And this is just, I think, quite a lovely way of looking at what it is to queer in a much more distilled fashion than we usually do. So hopefully this is helpful for you too as we kind of come into this. Does anyone have anything that they want to add to this definition or to your sense of what it means to queer, or anything like that? You can unmute yourself and add in if you'd like. And you don't have to, so we can keep talking.
Maybe add theologies to structures.
Say more, Lucia, one of our resident theologians.
Well, we have theologies that limit, bar, and imprison us that we need to rethink and replace. And some of them might even be our most cherished dogma.
Yeah.
But it's time. It's time. And maybe I don't know if I'm having some bad feelings about the word destroy. I want to rip these things apart, but I don't feel like that's destruction. I'm not sure what word I would use for it, but taking something apart, it's like if you have like a folding chair and you fold it up, you're not destroying it. It's still a chair. And even if you ripped it to pieces, there would still be chair parts that you could make into something to sit on.
Maybe deconstruct. That's a good queer theology word.
Okay, yeah. People think of that as being too academic, but I like it. Deconstruct is good.
I don't know if renovate works. Maybe that's too much.
That's close.
It's interesting that, like, Lucia, what I'm hearing you say too is like inviting us into our own spiritual language of resurrection too, of like what it means for something to come in a new form, or to, you know, to be able to die, to be able to come forth anew. There's like maybe a destruction part, but that does seem a bit violent in a way that really death can be violent, doesn't have to be, right? We can invite a sense of what it means to let go and to compost maybe into something
I like
new.
compost. I like compost a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, compost is good.
I once told a rabbi that scripture was like compost, and he totally freaked out, ran away from me. but but it's true. We take the old stuff and we put it on the pile, and it breaks down and the worms get it, and then we take it out and it's a better thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take, leftovers from that and put it on the pile. And the same process happens and it becomes a better thing.
That's good. In the chat, some folks are adding in, Lee is adding in, I think there's a bodily component to being queer, a relational and sometimes even oppositional juxtaposition to heteronormativity and its legacy that claims my body in addition to my spirit as sacred space. What
Wow.
better time of year than to invite that into Advent, like a time that's very embodied. And we were talking about like an incarnational deity coming into being. What a beautiful, Lee, let us know when you write your first book, or maybe you've already written a book and we don't know about it yet.
I love that. I hope
forthcoming eventually.
Oh
I
my,
hope that you're
can't
using
wait.
that exact quote in some papers this semester.
Seriously, write that down. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Really
And
good.
Cecilia added, it's about rearranging the atoms into something new and beautiful. I know nothing basically about atoms except what I learned in, like, the intro to science classes, which I clearly took a lot of. And but something that I know is that you can't destroy atoms, right? Like that's the thing that we know. And so that everything is always being repositioned and recreated, but that the very atoms in existence at the time of Jesus are the atoms that are still around. Thank you. Good additions. And this year, particularly with some of the offered scriptures from the lectionary, there's some great opportunities to think more about these things. And as we kind of ground ourselves into Advent, I just want to go back and read some of the things we're bringing into Advent this particular year that we might want to think about with how we're queering Advent. Some people are talking about bringing, there's difficulty holding on to hope right now. We want to bring forth the spirit of reflection. We want to bring forth possibility. Bringing our bodies, our spirits, queerness, and hope for Advent and to this workshop, which you're already doing. Thank you, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Working on how we can have hope and joy, peace, and love during this anxious time.
I think that really hits on one of the things that's very queer about Advent. In the Northern Hemisphere, it's getting darker much of the time, and that doesn't feel like, when the sun isn't out very much, like a season of hope. And yet it's kind of queer, right? Like here we are. I mean, I can't really claim that it's very cold because it's like 80 degrees where I am. But I do understand how weather works and that it's cold for some people right now. And I'm in Tampa, Florida, by the way. So it is queer though to think about people in places where it's extremely cold and maybe gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to be thinking, yeah, thanks, Marie, who is also in Florida. What's this cold? But to be thinking about hope in this time. And what does Advent bring us but a very queer story, right? I mean, I personally maybe don't have the same beliefs as some around the importance of whether or not Mary was an actual virgin as we understand it today. But there is a piece of this story, right, that is about someone who in the scriptures was not supposed to be pregnant, bringing life into this world. And whatever that means as we understand it today, it's queer. It's a queer family, you know, uh, a family that's structured around choice in terms of, you know, Joseph being part of a chosen parenting here, where there's a great story of Joseph being like, what am I doing with this? And choosing to parent. And that's very queer, the way that all came about. And Mary, just so young, and like, I'm sure, can you imagine the look on her face as she's trying to, you know, we hear the Magnificat, and and I always wonder what happened in those moments before she suddenly breaks into song about tearing down the empire. Was there something very queer that happened in her to make that shift?
I've read, now I'm not going to remember where it is, so maybe one of you will remember, but someone talking about the pleasure that Mary might have received when deciding to bring about Jesus to, like, you know, when lots of people choose to have children, there's pleasure involved in that process. Like, was there a kind of even bodily, not just spiritual pleasure that Mary received when she said yes? Just very fun to think about.
Lauren Bennett.
Whoever preaches.
I dare y'all to preach that in your churches.
Oh my gosh, send me your sermons.
Yes, please.
Tell me everything. I'm also, this year, the Sanctified Art stuff, which we'll talk about some resources that we pull from sometimes to just whet our appetite for the season and to get us into some different thinking. This year, they're thinking about fear, and it's made me more mindful of how often, we know, right? Like, doesn't it say, do not be afraid 365 times in the Bible, right? It's like very popular, very kind of thing that we need to know throughout time. But in a lot of the people who are in this Christmas and Advent story, an angel comes upon them and says, be not afraid, or do not fear. There's something in there. And I've been thinking and just kind of reflecting on queer people laugh sometimes in the face of fear. And when we're at our best, we are able to use even ridicule to be able to say no. Like, I'm mindful right now of like the queering that has been going on with ICE going to Portland, and like then people were dressing in frog costumes, right? And inflatable costumes to be like, no, I'm ridiculing you. Like, I cannot believe you're doing this. This is absolutely ridiculous. And just like kind of laughing in the face of fear and laughing and ridiculing what's happening. And I think there's some interesting invitation for us to think about as we think about what it means to queer Advent, to laugh in some of the ways that people are wanting to oppress us, but the ways that we are not, or that we're standing in the way of that, and the ways that we can invite a different kind of prophecy in this time of rebirth. So when Jacob and I do this webinar, webinars like it, we like to talk a little bit about what it means to queer the text and how we do it. We've already shown some examples of that by talking a little bit about what it means to queer Advent, but these are some questions that we often look at when we think about what it might mean to queer the text, and some questions that you might ask. Almost every time we do this, people add questions to this. And so if there's a question that you think that's missing, please help us to make this list even better. So perhaps we can go back and forth and read some of these. But, you know, when looking at a text, we're not just looking at it literally, right? We're all well beyond that. We're looking at text in a much deeper, more prophetic, more spacious way. But in looking at text, we might ask who is represented in this text.
We look at who is left out and whose voice is excluded.
We might ask, what binary assumptions are being presented?
And what is another way to understand it or read this text?
We might look to some of the ways we've heard the text interpreted before. How is this text traditionally understood?
And I love this one. Who does that interpretation satisfy? So much of what we are taught is the interpretations that in some ways have met some need of some people who we will never have access to or know. And one more thing, it's often white supremacy. So looking into that, in what ways has it satisfied that goal?
Yeah, that might be a good question for us to add, actually, pretty explicitly in a way that feels even more important maybe these days with the rise of Christian nationalism being taking over so many national rhetorics, not just in the United States. Who does our interpretation of this text or a traditional understanding of this text comfort?
And who does it make uncomfortable?
And who is missing from the conversation altogether?
I think in preaching, it's really important to weave in not necessarily these direct questions, but more what the questions highlight for us in our sermon writing. So if there's something in it that makes people uncomfortable, like we were just talking about Mary, naming it, like, this is uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, here's some ways of looking at this that might be different.
Denise Dombrowski Hopkins, who was one of my Hebrew Bible professors at Wesley, used to talk about how every text that we encounter, there's white fire between the black letters of the text. And so our opportunity as theologians, as preachers, as teachers, is to listen to the white fire. And I think that's another way of distilling some of these questions. What does the white fire say? And the space between the letters is just as important as the letters themselves. We want to turn a little bit toward this particular season of Advent, though there's some juicy stuff in the chat, I think, happening.
Yeah. Let me read this one by Lee. Who does it make uncomfortable, and why? And how do we draw out this discomfort in a way that can find a path to a shared comfort, particularly as it relates to queerness, to the queer community, and to queer individuals in our congregation and in our lives? Wow. That's excellent.
That's good. And Marie, this morning I was meeting with a mentee about this very question that you ask about why is pleasure so taboo? That's a juicy question too. Like,
really
we should
is.
talk more about that. Why do we shame so much joy out of everything? Why is pleasure so bad? If you're looking for another conversation partner about that, Adrienne Marie Brown is one of my favorites, and she wrote an excellent book, Pleasure Activism, and she really dives into some of those questions. And it's one of those where every time I read it, I get something new out of it, and I'm challenged in a new way about how even myself, even though we're in this queer environment, we're trying to find pleasure in lots of things or try to reclaim some of that. I lack some muscle toward that. I am like very much a product of this like white Protestant culture that's about like suffering as some sort of means to goodness, which is bad. So maybe that can be another webinar, Bernie, for you to put under your pocket, in your pocket. So we wanted to, if you haven't looked yet ahead at the scriptures that are coming forth in the lectionary, we wanted to offer you a little bit of a glance toward those. So we'll talk about each one, each slide on its own. So this Advent one, it's the day before World AIDS Day, so it could be an opportunity for you to do something about World AIDS Day in your congregations. I know in the past our congregation has had a red candle on the first Sunday of Advent to symbolize World AIDS Day, especially when it falls on or right near the day. But can be a great opportunity for there to be other activities that happen in your city or town if you're a part of an organizing group in that. I don't know how much we want to dive into these, but we are just kind of putting them up here with a couple of words. I want to say personally, I'm not using the lectionary this year, but I would be really trepidatious to preach on Matthew 24 in a queer context at this time, because it's so the scripture is very judgmental, and it would be fun to reclaim it in some ways, but I wonder just in some of the kind of rhetoric of right now, if it would be more helpful to lean into the opportunity for peace, which is offered in Isaiah so beautifully. And that's the scripture that, there's the thing about studying war no more. It does not like that. Obviously, that's from the gospel, but like the gospel song, the spiritual, but that I think there's something really powerful to think about, like what does it look like to turn our swords into plowshares? Maybe like even how we started this conversation, right? What does it mean to dismantle or decompose things that are not working anymore, and to create some fertile ground for what might work better? Oh yeah, oops. Oh. Okay. This is also the week of hope. Woot.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Go ahead,
So
Jacob.
then for the next Sunday of Advent, the theme is peace. And again, I'm also not doing the lectionary this year. I'm doing Sanctified Arts Resource, which doesn't follow lectionary. But here are kind of the themes from the First Testament, the Psalm, and the Gospel. And yeah, I don't really have anything other than, I like focusing on the themes that are kind of traditional for Advent. So how can we put in a message around the queerness of peace?
And I think that I really like the Isaiah scriptures throughout the whole season of Advent, especially in year A. But this one sort of bookends with talking about the root of Jesse, and it could be an interesting thing to like really dive into some of our ancestors, or queer ancestors, or trans ancestors, and think about like who are some of the people that we're in lineage with, and how have they helped to bring us away into justice and peace, especially because Isaiah is kind of calling into being a Messiah, a messianic figure who brings in justice and peace, right? That's why this is an Advent. But it's interesting to me to think about what that could look like, especially right now when it feels like there's a lot of space for calling in some different kinds of leadership. The dove. Oops. The Canvas slides. Okay, there we go. Advent 3, I feel like this is, solid, like another sort of like the Isaiah ones. There's a do not fear piece in Isaiah. So if you liked kind of the idea of like do not fear and what it means to turn around fear, that might be a place to go into that a little bit. But an invitation to think about some of those things. And the third Sunday of Advent is what?
Joy.
Joy. On the third Sunday of Advent, we wear pink. Did anybody watch
So-
Mean Girls?
That's, yeah. People don't always, I always make that joke every year, and people are like, I don't get it. It's like every Thursday we wear pink is from Mean Girls. It's just a thing.
Oh, it's a fun time.
Makes me laugh.
At our church, sometimes we do different things instead of a traditional Advent candle. We do like one year we lit up trees. It was kind of like it it was a little show. So we would have in the liturgy, we would light the tree of joy or something. And then someone had a remote that turned on that outlet, and then the joy tree lit up. It was very fun.
Oh, that's cute. I
It
like
was
that
cute.
idea.
It was cute. But that year we had this very whimsical looking tree that we just like put out only for that Sunday. We had it up for the rest of the season and into Christmas, but it was a fun way to just think about like how can you transform your space too to create it more joyful and to have a surprising feature that people might not expect. It's a fun thing to think about, especially when you're thinking about like the surprise of children and the joy and like the surprise of peace, the surprise of justice. Like sometimes those things are really surprising, actually. So there could be an opportunity to bring that in a little bit. And then the fourth Sunday of Advent is love.
One of the things that's just fun about Advent in general is that there's like room in Advent for us to have some fun and some playfulness. My favorite liturgical season is Lent, but you can't really put a whole lot of like playful silliness in Lent. I mean, you can, and maybe that could be a practice for Lent that would be very queer. But there's something that is just really fun in Advent, and also sometimes people come to church a little bit more in Advent because they're like, oh, it's getting time to be Christmas, and to bring the kids to church, especially when there are children that you can involve in the worship.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love Advent too. And I will say one time, we can talk more about this when we get to the Lenten webinar too, but one time we tried to do a fun thing for Lent and we decided to do all games. So we like had a different kind of board game was the theme for each Sunday. But then we found out all these very serious stories about so many board games. Like, did you know, this is your fun fact for today, that Monopoly was created by a woman to show what capitalism would do to a society. And so on one side was the Monopoly board, which is showing capitalism. And on the other side was a game that really promoted socialism and sharing resources. And so what we thought would be like a fun way to incorporate some joy into Lent ended up being a very serious, very interesting thing where we not only went deep into Lent, but we ruined everybody's board games. And so it ended up being a really fun and interesting thing to do, but maybe not
Well,
quite what
I'm
we
glad you didn't do it for Advent because like nothing like ruining board games right before Christmas.
right, exactly.
I don't think anybody gets board games for Christmas anymore, but maybe you could ruin some video games.
Might not be a bad thing. So here are all of those together because this side is just so cute with all of them, aren't they? Yeah, if you need like a graphic for your work as you distill things, you can take a screenshot of this. Oh, so there's also some special opportunities to have other kinds of worship services in the season of Advent, so we wanted to lift those up. We do a longest night service, Blue Christmas, on the longest night of the year, the winter solstice. And lots of churches do that in different ways. I think our two churches do that pretty differently too. And we've done different things throughout the years. This year it's on Sunday, which is an interesting opportunity to bring people back, but it could also be a time for you to celebrate that a different night if it feels more difficult to bring people back, or if you worship in the evening, it might be hard to make this the main service. If you've never done one of these services before, they can be a really important place for people for whom the holidays are difficult, to bring up sad feelings or grief or anger, to let them have their own space. So we often have extra people that are around to be able to offer prayers or one-on-one listening sessions to just make sure people are being held in that. We usually do a quieter service that might just have an instrument or even some just quiet canned music and some opportunity for reflection. And so other communities have done Taizé services or things like that. You work on what works best for your folks, but it can be a really special time. And then of course, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, first Sunday of Christmas, second Sunday of Christmas. We have some extra fun things in store for that season, and the week this year is interesting because Christmas Eve, Christmas Day are right in the middle of the week. And so there's opportunity to bring together people in a way that isn't always possible. So you can think about how that might be different. If you do a Christmas Day service, maybe that's a pancake breakfast instead of something else, since there's just so much happening in such a short amount of time with the ways that the days worked out.
One of the things
Go ahead.
also is Epiphany. And I like doing star words, not to be confused with Star Wars. And Sanctified Art makes these gorgeous little star word cards that have basically, but you can make them yourself. And some folks, I don't think Michael Cronin's on this call. He's at a protest right now, so. But one of the things that he does at his church is a generated, like, it's on the website. You go and you can click and it gives you your star word for the year. So the way that these star words work is that it's like, the Epiphany is right after the new year, and then a week or so after the new year, January 6th, and you get this word, and it's kind of your word that sets your intention of the star that you will follow for the year. A couple of years ago, I was having some major health issues, and then that following Epiphany, the word that I pulled randomly was health. And I was just like, wow, that's incredible. And I do it every year. I have my card and I keep it on my desk and I see it throughout the year. This year it was innovate. My husband got the card patience. Haha.
Words like
For a clergy spouse. Interestingly enough, I also have his card still on my desk. Somehow it ended up stuck in my Bible instead of going home with him from church that day.
I could see why. I would put it in your Bible too.
Yeah, definitely. So that's just a practice that I really love, that I encourage folks to take on. Oh, yes, Alicia, thank you. Kwanzaa, December 26th to January 1st.
And this would be a good year for education too. If your community isn't as familiar with Kwanzaa, it'd be really great to help them be more familiar. Something that we've started doing in the last few years is to do an Advent devotional, and we extend that all the way through at least Kwanzaa, if not through Epiphany, and it's helped people to connect throughout the season. Actually, many of you were on that now that I'm looking at who's here in the room this year. And it's been a really lovely way for people to stay connected through this season and to be more mindful of all the different things that are celebrated at the end and beginning of the year. We wanted to offer a couple of resources that we use to have conversation partners with. I'm sure some people use ChatGPT now, which we could talk about the ethics of now or later. But there's some great other planning resources that you can use. Infleshed is one. It's a resource that offers all kinds of beautiful written liturgy and sermon commentary, sermon thoughts and commentary on the scriptures for the week. And there's also an archive. So if they choose the scripture that you're not preaching on, you can look through the archive for other years that they might have said commentary on yours. It's a queer resource. So it's really lovely. Sanctified Art is the one that we've been kind of promoting, not because we get any kickback or anything from them. Maybe we should talk about doing that, actually. Not kickback,
really?
but helping you all by giving a discount code. There's lots of other groups that do give discount codes, like Pulpit Fiction, which is also on this list, where you can get some really great commentary. We also often use the Worship Design Studio, which is Marcia McPhee's brainchild and baby, and she does a lot of really wonderful worship resources too, not only for Advent and for Lent, but for all seasons. She has some for ordinary time as well as special Sundays and, of course, longer seasons. We love Black Liturgies, and Cole Arthur Riley in the back of Black Liturgies has some really great thoughts and prayers for different high seasons, including Advent and Christmas. An Illustrated Ministry is a new one that we've started using at our church. They do coloring stuff, which is really neat, and they also do some worship resources. Their resource this year is about dreaming, which is fun. we did want to just say a little bit, since we're both using this resource this year, about sanctified art. And I wanted to offer, their Jesus is always brown, which is great. Illustrated Ministries really does do a great job, in my opinion, of trying to be more diverse in the kinds of people that they're showing in things. And so if you're looking for making sure that there's more diversity in your resources and in what you're offering, they're a great place to look for graphics and for other kinds of things. Sanctified Art does some really beautiful artwork too. So these are the Sundays and how Sanctified Art is offering these. These are the 4 Sundays of Advent and their themes. And I just wanted, go ahead.
They have like special artwork that goes with each of the Sundays in their series. And a little, it really does feel like we're doing an infomercial for Sanctified Art. I just love it because it's helped me so much over the years with my worship planning. But I like to do like a similar to Lectio Divina, which is like where you read the scripture multiple times. I like to do it in small groups. What they call Visio Divina, where you investigate the artwork and in conjunction with the scripture for the week, and it's just really quite a powerful tool to use.
Yesterday, I was at a clergy gathering, and people were talking about Advent. And one of the things that they're doing is it's called Omni Divina, and they look at different kinds of senses each week. They like look at something through a different sense. And so last night they did something on smells. And so they had these jars around the room that you smelled. And that's what they did for their Divina style kind of, I don't know what that is, like olfactory Divina. I'm not sure. But it was wonderful. Like it's just like interesting ways that you can incorporate all kinds of arts and sensory worship into Advent. I wanted to offer a way that I often queer Sanctified Art resources is by making it a little bit different to work with our kind of where we're at. So I just wanted to say for our church this year, we really liked what the idea was here about fear. The overall theme is something, what do you fear? I think the question is, and then these are the sub themes. And we decided to make it louder than fear instead, which comes from actually one of the things that they wrote. There's like a response or something that's louder than fear. And we thought like hope being louder than fear, peace being louder than fear was something that really resonated with where we're at. And in place of some of these themes, we decided to go with their offering the kind of focus, what's it called? The image of a lantern this year, and our music team really loved that image of the lantern, and so we decided to have all of the themes be different lantern kind of themed. So the first week we're doing lift your lantern, the second week tend the flame, and we're inverting the second and third Sunday of Advent, so we're staying in the Lucan text for a minute before shifting to Matthew. And then dancing with the shadows. There's this beautiful image that Sanctified Art put together of John the Baptist in jail, and he's kind of looking forlorn, and there's a lantern in front of him, and behind him there are like these shadows. They're like dancers in the shadows. It's just beautiful, and we thought, what does it look like to befriend the shadows and to dance with the shadows or dance in the shadows? And then the last one will be share the glow. So there's just opportunity, even if you're using a resource, to make it your own and to kind of do things that feel right for your community. And then their Christmas Eve, Sunday after Christmas, and Epiphany resource, it continues. So it kind of goes into more. We love these themes actually, so we just kept these because we thought the lantern's lit, we got it like next. So this is, I love this. So, louder than fear, that's where we got this, was the Christmas Eve one. It's just interesting to think about how you can use these for your context too. So just because you use a resource, you can queer it yourself. So we'll stop sharing the screen and come back into the room and see kind of what you're thinking about this year. If there's something that's sparking you or something that you want to think about together as we catch up in the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in the chat. I put in the link to the sanctified art piece that we've been talking about so much, and also just to the Pulpit Fiction website. All right. So tell us, we're going to switch gears a little bit now from us kind of presenting to you. And this is a chance for us to talk about what are your thoughts as Advent approaches in your personal spiritual journey, in your congregation, if you're leading a congregation, or if you're a part of a congregation. Where are you with Advent now? And if the answer is, oh my gosh, so far behind, I can't believe I haven't even started, that's fine too. What would
I
you
wanted
like
to offer a song that I came out in April, but it's called God is in the Rubble. I forced Jacob to listen to it earlier. It's a beautiful song, and I think it speaks well to some of the discord that's happening in our world and how God is with us in the rubble, not causing the rubble, but in it with us. It's quite lovely. I'll put it in the chat. Maybe we could talk a little bit if there's nothing pressing about Advent programming. We have still more time to be together if that would be helpful, but Advent programming and some of the things that we do to correspond. So for both Jacob and I, we try to create opportunities for people to deepen whatever we're discussing in Sunday throughout the week. And so one way I already shared about was that we have daily devotionals that are written by different people to be able to think more about the theme. So we usually take the theme and then create sub themes, because who doesn't love a good theme? Let's just sub theme that out. And helping to kind of create more reflection around some of those things. We also do an Advent meditative coloring time. We've done that for a few years. I think Marie, have you come to it before? I feel like you have, maybe not. Okay, so we, if people want, we send them a little packet with the same coloring sheets if they want to do the same coloring sheets, or people can just bring whatever coloring book they like. And then we have an Advent playlist. And so we start out with like a little prayer, like a devotional thought, something like that. This is real short. And then we play the Advent playlist. People will turn off their cameras, color for 30 to 40 minutes. And then we come back on for like a kind of compline service, like Vespers kind of, just real shortened, like 5-minute kind of evening prayer. And that's been a nice way for people to just kind of wind down. We do it late, so 8 p.m., which is late, I think late for a program. And I'm like ready for bed after that. And do it only online, so people can kind of do it as a wind down activity before they go to bed or do whatever else they do toward the evening. Oh, thank you. Bam put in Colleen's. Colleen Dara is an amazing theologian, liturgical artist, writer, and she created a theme that focuses on the theme of peace. And so each week is a deeper exploration of peace. She uses some of Richard Rohr's thoughts and some other kind of pieces to link those together. So that's a resource there too. Peace that transforms is the overall theme of that. And she even has some graphics and that kind of thing to think about.
One of the things that I've found is that some of the folks at my church really enjoy just opportunities to share their own story, their own spiritual journey stuff. So what I like to do is, I had mentioned earlier about the Visio Divina with the artwork for the series, and I put in that some discussion questions that help people kind of connect to their own spirituality, and then they end up telling a lot of their own story. and hearing each other's stories. And I've noticed over the years that kind of format where whether I'm using the artwork or not, I create these programs where people get to answer questions that help them figure out their own path. And it has made some folks really very close to each other. Oh, yes, as always, those who do webinars with me have met this cat lots of times. She needs her presence to be known. But to just, they start to form deeper relationships and they know each other so well. And I've just found that to be a really powerful opportunity. And another piece to think about, and this connects, Lauren, to your coloring time, is that in December, people get so busy and overwhelmed, and like the push toward consumerism is so all encompassing of your mind, right? And I just watch as the congregation gets more and more stressed out. I personally do not have a Christmas party, and I try to avoid every Christmas party that I might get invited to because it's just so overwhelming. Um, uh, and I won't have that excuse anymore now that I'm transitioning to another career path. I'll still be doing ministry, but not full time as a pastor. I just realized
Have to come up with a new
I'm a
excuse.
pastor. I'm too busy to go to anything. Is that excuse is gone after this year? But anyway, people are stressed, is my point, and having something that is just calm and they don't have to prepare anything. They don't have to, do anything except for just be present and be spiritually fed, and also fed with food is also a lot of the programs we offer. We do kind of a potluck thing, and we get to share in food together. Ooh, confident coloring. Pets on Zoom. Yeah.
This year for our Christmas concert, well, we're having a music opportunity. That's
Say more about a music opportunity.
Anyway, we decided that our choir could have a good time combining our services with another choir. So we're doing a combined choir concert with another choir. And we decided to lean into some of the things that are happening in the world, into creating like an arc story with the lanterns. And I thought it would be fun. Our worship space has a lot of light, but if you don't have light in your sanctuary, it might be fun to experiment with light a little bit in the season of Advent. And so the lantern thing could be a fun thing to do, to have lantern light or have a different kind of light or like a womb like experience. So for a Christmas concert, that's what we're doing, because it's at night, so it doesn't matter if it's dark or not. So it'll be dark since the sun will be down. And so we're starting out with one lantern coming in with like this kind of eerie sound, and then at the end of the concert, by the end of the concert, all of the lights will be on, and we're doing like candlelit more, so it'll be like a candlelit concert if you've seen those on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, with like hundreds of LED candles. So that's what we're planning for our concert, which is kind of fun to think about. What are there opportunities for visual arts and for lights? And with any of these, like lighting the Advent candles are such an important part of so many traditions. How can you go with a different theme or something? Like if you're doing sanctified art, and the lantern theme, we're doing 4 lanterns each week instead. And so there could be a fun opportunity for that, to kind of think about what does it mean to play with some of those things that we do to queer the Advent wreath.
As we're coming to the end of our webinar, I really hope that you're feeling some kind of inspiration about Advent. And I just wanted to see if anybody has any last ideas you want to share, what you're doing, or anything that has come to you in this hour, or what you're working on.
Well, I appreciate, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate just being on the webinar. I wasn't sure if I'm going to stay right now in this church. I'm interim. It looks like I'm going to stay longer in this church. So I hadn't thought about Advent for the first. This is literally the first, the very first time that I'm thinking about it. And one of the things I like to do during Advent is to kind of look at, you know, the stories have gotten so polished and clean the way they come to us. And I'd like to look at, like, what if it wasn't like that? Or was it really like that, right? Like, for instance, I don't think that Mary and Joseph were all alone on the path to Bethlehem. There were all these people that were going to Bethlehem. So there was this whole community. And I imagine that within that community, that there were other women who saw how pregnant she was. And the Jewish community wouldn't leave her alone with that. And that when they got to Bethlehem, that the women, you know, were already alerted. And when she started to give birth, that they came over, and that literally Jesus was born into the hands of women, right? It wasn't just this singular, very young woman all by herself. And it's like the impact of community and where the community has been left out and the strength of the community. And so I think I'd like to get back to that. And then I also was thinking, as you were talking about light, if there was a way to include the community in thinking about what has gone dark for you this last year, or is there something that has gone dark, and where did you see the light come in, and or in your own life, your own spirit, are there places that have gone dark, and how do we, what are our practices to look for light, and who do we look for, and but just to, not just, but to, so sparking some ideas. Those are some of the ideas that got sparked.
Ooh, those are good. Your ideas sparked so many images in my head too. Like, if you're thinking about all these people coming, because of course there would have been a caravan or something. Like, there's all these people walking. They all have to go. Like, it would not be just like two people on a road. Like, when in scripture are there two people on a road anyway? That's completely ridiculous. Like, that. Right. Just so good. But like, what would it look like to read the scripture and have all these people like processing in sort of together and milling about in like chaos or something down the aisle, like as you're reading the scripture? Like, how could you invite some of that liturgically too, in a way that might spark people to think about things differently? Like, there could be a whole theme too on the inn, you know, like what you're saying, or like just like converting some of our thoughts, you know, like we're told like, oh, there's no room at the inn. That means Jesus was born in a stable, and like it was like the worst. But then there's been a lot of new architectural research, right, in the last couple of 100 years that have said like, well, maybe that's not exactly the story. Like, maybe actually like it was the best place to be because there weren't any stairs and there wasn't a ladder, and maybe it was like a more hospitable place. So like, how can we turn in our heads like some of the ways that we've been taught these scriptures and sanitized them over time to making them a little bit more gritty? I also thought when you were saying like, what are the moments of inspiration or like the moments of light throughout the year, there's this stuff called flash paper. You can write on it, and like you could pass it around, and then it lights up like a flash. And what would it look like to have like a bowl of like flash prayers? Like, look at all the sparks of light we've had this year. Like, you know.
Whoa, I've never heard of this.
Oh, it's cool. Like, have water, but it's cool.
One more thing is that a few of us who are here right now are in a weekly, we call it a lectionary group, but to be honest, so many of us haven't been, like, I've been off the lectionary for over 2 years now, but I still go to the group every week, and we workshop our sermons together on Wednesdays at West Coasters at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We call it the Queer ADHD Support Group, and that's a good name because we bounce around a lot and we give each other a lot of support, and we do really work on our sermons together. So if any of you are interested in being part of that, I just put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send you the link to join us. And if there's any other way that we can be supportive to you as you're in your Advent journey and beyond, as Bernie mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, we have a few more coming up. Oh, sorry, I got distracted by the comments. It's very exciting.
Air?
Marie says, I just bought some paper that you can light and then they extinguish as they float in the air.
Oh.
All right.
And it's only for indoor use.
Wow.
If I had them with me, I would hold them up and show you a picture. I bought them at a real, actual independent bookstore.
Wow.
Oh my
You
gosh.
just got so many queer points right now.
Yeah, you win the queer gold star for today.
So good.
So please come to our other Queering the Word webinars because they're fun, and tell your friends. And if you're an MCCer, you get a CEU for being here, 1 hour of CEU credit. So.
And you can just email clgs@clgs.org for that.
And if you have connections in other denominations where they might want that as well, reach out to us at CLGS because I'm sure we can make whatever connection needs to happen there. We just started with MCC since those of us leading these are all MCC people.
And then the next one will be already thinking of Lent, January 28th, and that will be with Reverend Dr. Tijuana Gray and with Reverend Jakob Hero-Shaw. So thank you, everyone. Any questions remaining? Wonderful to see you here, and check out our website for more things happening at the center, and have a good Advent or however you celebrate those weeks before late December.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.